Hello, and welcome to Tina Talks. This is episode 5 in a 5-part series on CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. That's right, folks. This is the last episode in this series. Previously, we discussed that CMMC requires people, processes, and documentation as well as technology, not just technology. It's not just an IT problem. So, what are we going to talk about this time? Well, how to prepare for CMMC without completely losing your mind, if you haven't already. The good news: most companies already have some pieces in place that are required. It is important to know your contracts, know your information, get a gap assessment performed no matter what level you are required to adhere to, and then prioritize what is identified as a weakness or areas that you have to implement. And this is a reminder that just because CMMC Phase 2 implementation is paused does not mean organizations should stop their efforts. CMMC is actually based on another standard called NIST 800-171. That standard was published in June of 2015. And the revision 3 of that standard was published in May 2024. It is not going away anytime soon. And it's a requirement in many contracts. CMMC is not going to dissipate. Cybersecurity is certainly relevant in this day and age. Now, what can you do to prepare without completely losing your mind? Well, I look at it this way. You're going to document what you do. You're going to say what you do. You're going to train how you do it based on what you do. You're going to improve those processes as time goes on. As you assess, you're going to assess the documentation, your training, and your improvement efforts as a whole. Please note that preparation is much easier than emergency compliance. That doesn't get anybody anywhere other than out of their mind. Now, how to prepare for CMMC without losing your wallet. Here are the main areas that drive cost. Organization. You need to organize your data files. You need to have an understanding of what kind of data is in what kind of file. We spoke previously about potentially having colored folders, some of which indicate that it's federal contract information and some of which might indicate that it's controlled unclassified information. Even if you just have the one type, but you document that you color code them as these are the blue files, then that's going to show that you've put effort into being organized and that your data files are organized. Existing maturity. Let's face it, some companies and organizations already have had to deal with cybersecurity in one shape or form. And therefore, they already have some existing processes in place that could be fairly mature. So, less mature systems have further to go. What drives cost? Documentation. You didn't document what you're doing. Then how do you know if your processes are successful? How do you know what to improve if you don't have your processes documented in the first place? And certainly major technology gaps. If you're from a starting place where you don't have antivirus software included in your systems, you probably have a long way to go to get to even a level 1. And that can cost a significant amount of money over a short period of time, again, especially if you're rushing to implement and get compliant. Being unorganized costs you time and money. So don't do that. Again, how can you prepare? Discuss common mistakes amongst your organization. Discuss them with your cohorts, with other people, other subcontractors that might be working with a particular prime. Don't wait too long. I think a lot of companies look at the pause in phase 2 implementation and go, whew, all right, we can stop all of our efforts now. I don't think that's a great idea, because then you're just going to be sitting there in 90 days when potentially the recommendations are out and they say, oh, this was a good idea. What are you doing then? You're that much further down the road and you still haven't put some of the things in place that you could do. Don't buy software before understanding what the requirements are, and especially what is that software doing? How is that software benefiting you and your company? I think a lot of software companies might be taking advantage of smaller subcontractors and their lack of understanding about what's needed and trying to sell them something that maybe you're already getting for free. For example, a major documentation system. Well, if you're using something like SharePoint or Microsoft tools of that nature, you effectively already have a documentation system in place. It's just about how you use it and making sure you document how you use it properly. Also, don't treat CMMC like just an IT project. It's not just IT. Again, last time we talked about how it's your people, it's your processes, all of those pieces, as well as the technology. So it's not just IT's problem to implement, because they're not the ones that are going to be issuing training company-wide. That's probably going to involve a couple of other people from your organization. Keep in mind, CMMC is proof that your company protects government information appropriately. Don't you want to prove that? Don't wait too long to do it. Now, let's talk about these phases again. So, phase 1, the initial implementation of CMMC, actually began November 10th, 2025, and solicitations will require a level 1 or a level 2 self-assessment, though that's already in place. That requirement already is there and is being flowed down in contracts by some of the primes to subcontractors. Phase 2 was scheduled to begin in November of this year, and that's where some of the solicitations by the DoD would require a level 2 certification. So there's a pause right now on those level 2 certifications, but please note, phase 1 is still active. Only phase 2 is paused. Don't stop your cybersecurity work because phase 2 was suspended. Let's separate what your contracts still require from what certification expenses can reasonably be delayed. Don't just stop everything and delay everything until the government makes a decision, because that can really bite you in the butt in the long run. So I want to tell you a story. What is the fastest improvement that you've ever seen a company make after understanding where they really stood? Honestly, the fastest that I've seen is actually the realization that they already have some of the controls in place because they're using Microsoft tools and because they don't handle CUI. So the requirements are actually much less on those companies, and they really thought they had this far to go, but really they were already here. So now it's just this far. And that was something that seemed more manageable. And I feel like that gave great positive reinforcement that they could actually make it to the compliance deadline, if you will, to the compliance finish line. Some of the myths I want to remind you about while you're preparing for CMMC without losing your mind. These are myths. We're too small. We only make parts. We never touch classified information. Just note that cybersecurity is the responsibility of anyone involved in doing business with the federal government, no matter what size you are and what product or service you might be supplying. Regarding classified information, there's no reference to classified information within CMMC. CMMC references controlled unclassified information as well as just federal contract information. Here's a couple more myths. Our customer handles compliance. You might think that, but check your contract, because I bet that they are flowing that down to you as a sub, and that probably started last November. We've already touched that a myth is this is an IT problem. We have antivirus software, so we're done. That's not accurate. It's more than just an IT issue. And having antivirus software, that's great. You should definitely have that. But it is not the beginning and the end of addressing cybersecurity. One last myth I want to say is that I've been hearing certainly a lot recently is, well, I heard CMMC was suspended, so we don't have to worry about cybersecurity anymore. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? Well, it is. That conclusion is wrong. The certification rollout is being reconsidered. The way it's being rolled out is being reconsidered. The underlying contractual responsibility to protect federal contract information and controlled unclassified information has not simply disappeared. What I want to leave you with is the golden nugget. Preparation beats panic every time. Now, who can you contact for help? My name's Tina Leety, and I'm Cloud 10 Services. We are your compliance specialist. You can reach me at tina@cloud10services.com. I want to state that CMMC certification may be changing, but your obligation to protect government information isn't. This pause is an opportunity to become compliant without paying for a rushed certification effort and not really fully implementing what you need to do. Right now is a great time to get that CMMC readiness assessment or a gap assessment. This is the time to figure out where you are. So let's determine what actually applies to you. Let's fix the underlying weaknesses, and let's avoid spending money on certification activities until the government's revised path is clear. In the meantime, you can take a little bit of action that's going to go a long way in helping you to not panic about implementing CMMC. This concludes our series on CMMC, and I hope that you found it beneficial. If you did, please like or subscribe to our channel and like this video, and go back and check out the first 4 in the series. I hope that they're just as beneficial, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.